always insecure.
I'm one badass freaking overlord!
A name means nothing on the battlefield. After a week, no one has a name.
The following video you're about to watch is not fact, nor is it false. It's simply one perception of how every game in the Legend of Zelda series pieces together to form the grand series. In watching the angry video game nerds rant on trying to piece together the Zelda series, it kind of sprang up an old desire to do my own version, though this is actually closer to the video that Game Trailers created, but it has some pretty significant changes that I find more logical. If you have your own ideas of how Hyrule's grand history pieces together, I more than welcome any and all video responses to this, as there's no single truth to the line that connects this wonderful series. So, sit back and enjoy. Now, in piecing together the chronology of the Legend of Zelda series, a lot of sources state that the Minish Cap is indeed the first title to the series, as it's one of a few standalone games, as in those not considered sequels, that has no mention of Ganon whatsoever in the story, signifying that this takes place before the tyrant gained his power. I agree with this theory most of all, since the game also shows how Link received his trademark green hat, and also setting the temple to every following Link to have a hat of his own. Now, the other standalone game, also conveniently in the Four Swords subseries, is the Four Swords, a game that came with the GBA port of A Link to the Past. While it's implied that these games take place at around the same time, the fact that the Four Swords is the other non-sequel that has no mention of Ganon is enough evidence for me to put it at the second place in the series, and so far this timeline matches every other one I've seen so far. Now this is where it gets tricky, as Ocarina of Time is the third spot on the list. It shows the origins of Ganon as the Gerudo King Ganondorf. The official word from Eiji Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto is that the timeline splits. So, unless they say they were lying, this is concrete. Exactly where it happens in the game is up for debate, though. I mean, the path where Ganondorf was found out and later tried, later in Twilight Princess, could happen either when Link and Zelda first meet after the first dungeon of the Great Deku Tree, as the scene in the ending is drastically similar, or it could happen after Link beats all three dungeons. But this isn't important. It's the fact that it deviates before Link pulls the Master Sword. Because as we all know, the other side of the fork in the timeline occurs when Hyrule has indeed been conquered by Ganondorf, and the end result is Link being erased from the future to re-experience his childhood. We'll start by explaining a little bit of the lighter outcome, where Link is a child again. It's known that Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to said events from Ocarina of Time, so that's where we'll place it. Now, this is something that's really going to tick a lot of theorists off. The official word from Eiji Aonuma is that the Twilight Princess takes place not on the other side where a Link doesn't exist, but on the side that Ganondorf was found out. And if you observe the events in Twilight Princess, this makes some degree of sense, because the Wind Waker states that when Ganondorf returned, the hero of legend never returned to fight him again. And, well, this doesn't happen in Twilight Princess. Obviously, you're playing as Link and you beat Ganondorf again. Midway through Twilight Princess, the trial of Ganondorf is shown, and it's said that this is what happened after the King of Hyrule found out about Ganondorf's plot. So, this is where it should be placed, as it's the official, and also the most recent statement. Now for something that really shouldn't be a surprise, Phantom Hourglass, which is officially the sequel to the Wind Waker. This doesn't really need any explaining at all, because it has the same Link and Tetra from the Wind Waker. Here's where it gets really tricky to place the last few games, but, I'll do my best to see if I can place them accurately using the clues that are given. Back on the other side, the next game that I'm going to place is Four Swords Adventures, because if you do some thinking about it, this is the game where Ganon gets his trademark trident, which he uses in a large group of the remaining titles. This, in my opinion, leads to A Link to the Past, as it's the last game on the left side of my theoretical timeline to actually have Ganon alive and well. Now you may be asking, but Lan, why haven't you mentioned the original two Zelda games on this side yet? Well, the answer's simple. because I honestly don't believe that they belong there. Now this is bound to slice through a vast majority of theories that place the original two on the left side, but just give me a chance to explain. At the end of the Wind Waker, Tetra tells the King of Hyrule that she and Link will find a land that they can call their own, and establishes the new Hyrule. Well, in my opinion, one of two things could have happened. The spell that kept Hyrule underwater was undone, and after several thousand years the water receded, leaving behind the barren landscape of the original Legend of Zelda. This is one of the only games not to have the Hyrulean trademark of Lake Hylia, and this theory could explain why it's not there anymore. Not to mention that the only recognizable trait of this world map, in comparison to a lot of the others, is Death Mountain, which was obviously too high up to be affected by the flood. But another option is that the pair of Tetra and Link did indeed find their new home on the other side of Death Mountain's peaks, which is established by people that passed their own family legends down of 5 of the 6 sages, which leads to the towns being named Raru, Darunia, Rudo, Saria, and Naburu. Now, if these two games were to take place on the other side of the split, why then are these the town names, as the sages never awoke to fight Ganondorf on the other side? So that's why I think they belong on the right side of the fork. Now, we only have 3 more games to mention, the Oracle games and Link's Awakening. As I mentioned earlier, A Link to the Past was the last game on the left side of this timeline to have Ganon alive and well, as he's completely destroyed at the end of this game. The answer is a very broad one. Well, simply put, there's not enough evidence to say what particular order these games could be placed, though game trailers mentions that the oracles are happening at the same time on opposite ends of the fork. Personally, I disagree, as whichever game you play second, Link starts with a sword, as well as an extra heart container, which signifies that it's the same Link, this time going on a second journey. Though for some reason he ditched all of his equipment. Nobody knows why. It's the Metroid syndrome. Don't argue it. But naturally, this means that whatever order you play the games in is where you can place them on the timeline. But whichever order you place them can vary from person to person. But the fact that Twin Rova tries in vain to fully revive Ganon, instead of reviving a hulking beast that only thinks about destruction, dictates that it's more logical to assume that they take place after A Link to the Past. And also, you have to place Link's Awakening sometime after A Link to the Past, as it has a battle not only against a Nightmare of Ganon, but a Nightmare of Aghanim as well. Now, Link's Awakening could feature the same Link from A Link to the Past, or it could be the gap that separates the 2 Oracle games, chronicling Link's trip back to Hyrule for the second game. But it really doesn't matter. Whatever the specific order, all these 3 games, in my opinion, need to be clumped at the end of the left timeline. Well, that was a mouthful. But anyways, now that I'm finished with my explanation, I'm challenging all of you to make a video response, as I'm interested in what you all think is the logical way to piece together the Legend of Zelda series. This is Lancun, signing off, going to start filming his Tales of Symphonia run-through, and I hope you all enjoyed my theory. So, make those video responses. And if you can't see it, there's a little red line that connects all the Zelda games that link together. Now, A Link to the Past I put and connected to the 3 portable Zelda games, just to signify that it doesn't matter what the order it is. So, hope you enjoyed it.